Fox Memorial Day broadcast entitled Remembering Our Fallen Heroes. I'm Freddie Clairvaux. You're just hearing the sounds of Columbia's own saxophonist Dante Lewis. For 1 hour tonight, we will be remembering those who died protecting our freedoms. We have a special guest lineup for you. Gold Star Moms, the South Carolina Department of Veteran Affairs, the South Carolina Combat Group, and others. Before we get to our interviews, let's take a look at some of the commemorative events that took place today. At the Fort Jackson National Cemetery in Columbia this morning, a ceremony honoring the ones laid to rest on the grounds. Speakers were there telling stories of the sacrifice service members paid before being buried. A 21-gun salute ringing out on the grounds as the people were silent to pay their respects. One of the speakers saying the day serves as a reminder for more than just service.
Memorial Day is not only about uniforms and battles. It's about people. It's about sacrifices made real in the lives of families forever changed. Memorial Day calls on us not just to mourn, but to act, to live lives worthy of their sacrifice, to teach our children in the actual cost of liberty.
Volunteers were there to help families find graves on the grounds so they can have some time with their own loved ones. And over in Chapin, the town there, as well as the American Legion, hosting their own Memorial Day ceremony. Several people coming out to honor the fallen service members throughout the nation's history. Watch Fox talked to some of the people there about what this day means to them.
Not to confuse this with Veterans Day or any other thing, but to remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, who have gone before us. And I mean, nobody comes in the military deciding, hey, I want to die for my country. But when those who have paid that ultimate sacrifice remember their sacrifice and why they served, and do the best that we can to live our life moving forward in honor of them.
To being able to come out and remember our fallen comrades, males, females, everyone that we've lost in services. So being able to come out and to pay homage to those that we have lost, and it always brings back memories, but they are good memories, and we try to remember not just the fallen comrades, but their family members who we also call our families.
Well, so how did we get here? What's the history behind Memorial Day? It was first observed on May 30th, 1868 to commemorate the sacrifices of Civil War soldiers. After World War I, it became a moment to honor those who died in all of America's wars. In 1971, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act and established that Memorial Day was to be commemorated on the last Monday of May. Each year at Arlington National Cemetery, there is a small ceremony in which a small American flag is placed on each grave. Typically, the president or vice president lays a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. This day is especially hard for Gold Star families. They are the families who have to deal with the death of a loved one during military service. They're placed in a position to make sure their loved one's name doesn't get forgotten. Joining us now are two Gold Star mothers, Elaine Johnson and Diane Raw. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for the courage that you all have to step out and to be here. We know this is like reliving a moment in your life that was very tragic. Ms. Johnson, your son, Darius Jennings, was a specialist in the Army. When did you find out he was killed and what happened?
I was sitting home on the morning of November 2nd, 2003. Me and my younger brother was getting ready to go for a family outing. And I was watching the news, I don't remember what channel, and I saw when the Chinook helicopter, which Darius was riding in, was shot down.
Wow, on television.
On television. And I began to pray for the mothers who lost their children in that crash, not knowing that I was actually praying for myself.
Wow. We're seeing some pictures of your son right here. This is when you pinned him, correct?
Yes.
When he first started, and there's some pictures of your son right over there.
Yes.
How have you been able to be strong all these years and seeing the helicopter?
It's hard. And I save it on my phone. I have it on my phone. But it's hard, not just his anniversary date, not Memorial Day, not Veterans Day, every day.
Every day.
Every day, we as Gold Star moms carried us with us every day, not just special days.
And Miss Diane Raw, your son, Ryan Raw, was the first lieutenant in the Army, and he worked with the Richland County Sheriff's Department.
Yes, he did.
When did you find out what happened to him, and how was he killed?
He was killed by a suicide bomber that came up to his platoon, and he and the first sergeant and some other men recognized what was going on, and they were trying to defuse it, trying to get the man away from the platoon and the Afghanistans that were there. And he, of course, the suicide bomber set the device off.
Wow.
We were notified, it was on a Wednesday, June 20th. We were notified that evening. My husband was on a tractor in the field right at the front of in the front of our property. We have a half-mile long driveway.
Okay.
And you could see them coming down the driveway. And they only come for one reason, and that is the notification of the death. When they got there, I was screaming, please tell me where he is. Let me go to, you know, I'm thinking, please let him be hurt and I can go help him. When they finally made us realize that no, he had died, my husband and I both just hit the ground.
Absolutely.
You know, it's horrific memories, horrific,
Yeah.
you know, to bring them up, but they do come up. They do come up.
Right.
And as she said, we remember them every day.
Every day.
And
Every day.
you all, obviously, you carried, respectively, your sons.
Yes.
So that's a bond that can't just, okay,
Right.
we're done with this. We'll pick it up next year.
No,
No.
no,
No.
you don't lay it down.
No.
You don't lay it down.
What has the process been like to make sure your son's name, Ms. Johnson, stays alive?
Well, every year I do a luncheon at the South Carolina National Guard in Orangeburg to honor my son, but tell the veterans thank you. Every year I do a big luncheon on the first Saturday in November because my son was killed the first Saturday in November.
Ms. Raw, how about yourself? What are you doing to make sure nobody forgets Ryan's name?
Well, my husband and I enjoy helping veterans and doing projects that help the veterans now. But Leon Lott and Richland County Sheriff's Department, they are always doing things to honor Ryan. The July 4th Ryan Raw workout is just one example of the many, many things that they do, and different ones of his friends and his soldiers will call and check on us and check to make sure that his children are okay and they don't need anything. So.
Ladies, we want to thank you so much for being here. Ms. Johnson, thank you for sharing your story. Ms. Rao, thank you for sharing your story as well. And of course, we have some more guests. We're going to continue this conversation because coming up later in the broadcast, we also have your son's daughter.
That's right.
Who is here, and she's going to be speaking for the first time
For the
openly.
first time about her daddy.
Wow, that's definitely going to be something that we look forward to hearing from. Ms. Johnson, thank you again, and thank you for keeping Darius's name alive. We appreciate it so much for all that you all are doing. Continue to stay with us. Watch Fox's special broadcast remembering our fallen heroes will continue after this break. Welcome back to the special edition of the News at 5, remembering our fallen heroes. We're looking at the tomb of the unknown soldier. It started as a monument honoring the remains of an unidentifiable soldier during World War I and has evolved to memorialize all service members who died overseas and cannot be identified. You can see one of the sentinels there patrolling the tomb. That monument has been under watch for decades as honor guards are always marching and guarding the tomb, rain or shine. And take a look at our forecast. Right now it looks like they got sunshine today, so let's check in closer to home. Meteorologist Clara Faith in the Skywatch Weather Center now. So how was the weather for us here, Clara?
Well, things have been basically off and on showers, mostly cloudy skies. In the last about hour, we have seen showers start to move across, not just Aiken, but parts of Lexington and Columbia going into our eastern regions like Sumter and Orangeburg. As we do head throughout the rest of our night, we are going to be seeing us under a marginal risk, meaning that we could have some chances, some isolated thunderstorms, especially with these gusty winds that we've been experiencing. Mainly just the southern part of South Carolina, Charleston, parts of Savannah, and also parts of Georgia is included in this marginal risk as well. Here's a look at downtown Columbia. Things are looking pretty wet and mostly cloudy skies out there. We're going to continue to see those rain chances move through tonight, but the heaviest amount of rain is really expected to move in overnight heading into Tuesday morning. You can see lines of showers, patchiness of some heavy rain, and also some chances of isolated storms. That is expected to really stay with us. We are going to see a little bit clearing by that 12 o'clock hour, but however, we could see some rain start to move back in through our area, sticking with us until Wednesday. Overall, it's going to be a wet couple days. Rain chances can get up to close to about an inch of rain, so above an inch of rain for some parts of the region. As you can see, Orangeburg over an inch, Sumter above an inch as well. So it's going to be a washout for us. This umbrella weather is really going to be continuing from tonight until Wednesday. We are going to be seeing a warm up and some drier temperatures return back into our forecast, mainly by the end of the week. Here's our 10-day forecast I'll leave you with. Rain, a chance is going to be sticking with us for the next 4 days, but then we're going to see some drier, warmer air start to move through.
Welcome back to Watch Fox's Memorial Day 1 hour special, remembering our fallen heroes. A few moments ago, we talked with two Gold Star mothers and their journey to make sure that their sons who died in combat would not be forgotten. Joining us now is Major General Todd McCaffrey with the South Carolina Department of Veteran Affairs. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for doing this today.
You're here to discuss the resources your department has for veterans. Talk to us about the resources that you all offer for those who have lost comrades or battle buddies.
Yeah, so it's important. Really, what the state does in many cases, we're an integrator. We help veterans route themselves where they can find the best resources. Well, we all tell all veterans, the first resource you ought to take advantage of is those benefits from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, your federal benefits that are statutory and you're entitled to those. We help veterans link to those and gain access to those. And then secondly, we also help veterans gain access to what we call the South Carolina Veteran Coalition. These are nonprofit and other organizations that provide other services to veterans across the state.
Got it. Even with that, so resources for Gold Star families. If folks want to reach out to you all, how do you all help or navigate them in that?
Yeah, so it's really an important topic, and you know, Gold Star families have paid such a high burden. You know, Memorial Day is one day a year for everybody else. For them, it's every single day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we try to do is do the same thing. We route them to resources. There are some at the VA for Gold Star families.
Okay.
There are some state benefits that Gold Star families can take advantage of. And one of the other things we do is link them sometimes to nonprofits. There's a wonderful nonprofit called the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, TAPS.
Okay.
And they were founded by Gold Star families, and they support Gold Star families from across the nation's conflicts. And they do wonderful work nationwide, and we've got a chapter here in South Carolina we also link Gold Star families to.
So how do you all continue the memories of the fallen heroes across South Carolina?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking the question, because you know, part of that is talking about veterans and the story of veterans and the service and the sacrifice veterans bring. So part of our job is to amplify the veteran voices, is to tell the story about veterans, tell the story about those who have sacrificed, highlight those that have, and we do that in a variety of ways. Part of it's appearing in forums like this. Part of it's speaking around the state with our staff, and part of it is just promoting the fact that veterans bring value to the state of South Carolina. Yeah.
And speaking of that, for the final question, Major General, here, you talked about that bringing value to South Carolina. Yeah. South Carolina is really known as a state that's military friendly.
It sure is.
So speak to that. Why is that?
Yeah, you know, I think part of it, you can say it's in the water here. It's cultural, part of it. But I think this state recognizes that what service brings. And this state is steeped in service, has been historically for generations. And this state hosts, 8 different military bases with over 68,000 active duty service members and a wonderful National Guard that's here. So this is baked into the state in so many ways, and we're just proud to be able to support those that do so much for our country and for the state.
Wow, Major General, thank you so much for being here. Of course, we're going to keep you around, and we have this 1-hour broadcast. And straight ahead, folks, Watch Fox continues to remember our fallen heroes. After the break, I sit down with 3 sisters who lost their father in Vietnam when they were just kids. We're going to hear their story. Welcome back to Watch Fox's Memorial Day 1-hour special, remembering our fallen heroes. Just before the break, we talked with the director of the South Carolina Department of Veteran Affairs about resources for families dealing with the loss. Well, one local family understands that and what it's like to lose the head of their family. The Elliott sisters lost their father when he died in Vietnam when they were just children. This was back in 1967. Joining us now is Cassandra Elliott, DeJaris Elliott, and Sheila Elliott Hodge. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so we just want to begin. How old were you all when your father passed away?
I was 12. Dee Dee was 10, and Sheila,
6.
she just 6.
Wow, so 12, 10, and 6 years old. What do you all remember the most about your father?
But what I remember most about my father was the fact that he was a strong person. He was dedicated. He was an Army man. He had gotten out of the Army, but evidently had gone back in some years, long before he married my mother. But he liked what he did. He taught hand-to-hand combat, and we heard a lot of stories, about him out when we lived at Fort Jackson and that type of thing. So, but he was he wanted, to come back home to us. He was very he wrote my mother wonderful letters, and concerned about how we were doing in school, and he wanted to come back and build her a house. So we know that he was a dedicated family man to us.
Did you all understand why your father was overseas at that time?
Not really.
Not really?
Not really. We knew it was part of the process, being in there, that they were going to be called to do various things, and not really knowing,
He's just at work. Dad's at work, basically.
He had a uniform on, but that time he just didn't come back home. Didn't come home.
Take us back to that time.
You asked a question, if you don't mind, if I can interrupt, about memories. Well, I don't have any memories of my dad, of our dad. So he's forever sort of etched in a frame, or the medals and his pipes that sat on our shelves.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't so much my age, to be honest, and we talked about this before in a thing that we did for StoryCorps. It was when I was talking to a counselor, that technically at 6 I was old enough to have memories, but I think my little 6-year-old self, because my his brother and sister-in-law, when I went to see them years later, they said, well, we were worried about you because I kept saying that my daddy was coming back to take me to 1st grade, because that was what he promised to do. So I just think my 6-year-old self, to deal with the trauma of it, just decided not to remember.
I see what you mean. Take us back to that time, ladies, were you being the oldest when you found out that your father had died? How did your mom break it to you all?
Well, actually, she didn't break it to us. We lived on Wheeler Hill. 215 Bull Street was our family's property.
So here in Columbia?
Yes, so we had a family home that we'd had since the late 1800s. And so we always went to live with my great aunt whenever my father was traveling, or we were moving to another location. But I came out on the playground at Florence E. Benson Elementary School, and I looked across the street, and I saw a U.S. Army green vehicle, and I saw 2 white men standing on the porch. And so I knew something happened to my father. So I walked across the street, and my mother was screaming, and my grandmother was standing next to her, and then that's when they told me. That's when I found out. So I went back across the street, and Dee Dee was in Ms. Castor's class, so I went and got her out of school, and then we went back across the street.
And that's
how I found out.
We are going to continue this conversation with the Elliott sisters after the break, because we want to hear from them. We want to hear from Dee Dee. We want to hear from you as well. Sheila, we want to make sure that we do get some more about your father and the type of man that he was. Stay with us, folks, after the break. And once again, we'll have Dante Lewis giving us the sounds of Memorial Day. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us for Watch Fox's special Memorial Day broadcast remembering our fallen heroes. We will continue this conversation and this special broadcast on watch.com as well as YouTube and all our social media platforms. The conversation with the Elliott sisters will continue. We're going to hear from them and their father, who passed away when they were just 12, 10, and 6. Once again, this broadcast will continue until 6 p.m. on our website at watch.com and our YouTube page. We hope that you will join us there. And now, one more time, Dante Lewis, more songs for Memorial Day. And thank you once again for tuning in to this special digital Watch Fox Memorial Day broadcast entitled Remembering Our Fallen Heroes. I'm Freddie Clairvaux. Once again, a few moments there, you were hearing the sounds of saxophonist Dante Lewis. And we are continuing to remember those who died protecting our freedoms. Before the break, we were hearing from the Elliott sisters, who their father passed away in Vietnam in 1967. They were 12, 10, and 6 years old. And once again, they are joining us back for this broadcast. Once again, ladies, thank you so much. Wow, for being here again. You all actually purchased, or not purchased, but brought with you some items. Sheila, you have two things with you that belong to your father. Tell us about it.
Well, they didn't belong to my father,
Okay.
so it's really what's in these two pictures that my sisters are holding.
Okay.
Is when our family was presented with Dad's medal of this Bronze Star and his Purple Heart. So these are his medals, and this
Okay.
is just one of his pipes. So growing up, we had shelves in the den that had the flag, his certificates of honorary service, and all those pipes. And they were just dusting. So it was just something about him that we remember. We still have.
Yeah. Looking at those pictures now, I know, Cassandra, with you being the first, what do you remember about that picture?
I think what I remember was that we had to go 2 separate times. They didn't give us both of the medals at the same time. And so we went out to Fort Jackson one time, and Mama, you can see we were dressed differently. And so we had to go out there 2 different times. I'm not sure why, but we had to go out there 2 times to get the separate medals.
As you all grew older, did you all learn what happened to your father, how he died?
Yes. Well, he actually was killed with small arms fire. He died in Long An, Vietnam, in May of '67, and so his body came back whole, and so he was buried for 50 years at Woodlawn Cemetery. And when my mother died in 2017, we had him exhumed, and so they're both now at the Fort Jackson National Cemetery. 50 years later.
You all are sisters, obviously, blood sisters, and you all, that's one bond of being sisters, but you all share another bond of someone. The first man you all loved passed away fighting the country. How do you all continue to stay strong together? Dee Dee?
Well, just to get together. A lot of times we get together, we reminisce. But thanks to my son, who I can say that I gave toward my dad's legacy, because I gave him my dad's name.
Okay.
He's the only son in the family. So to the things that I learned, to be courageous, educate yourself, I tried to instill in him too. And he did a little military service.
Military.
Yeah, he did a little bit. But
And for those who don't know, what's your father's full name?
Harold
Washington
Elliott.
Harold Washington Elliott. Wow. I know it takes a lot of courage for you all to come back and to tell stories about your father, because his life was cut short when you all were just kids. How did your mother help raise you all without her husband there?
Mommy was a force of nature.
Yes.
Okay.
She was, in many ways, rather stoic, a classic military wife. She accepted the life that they chose to live. So mother would say things like, "You need to know your father's people," literally that phrase.
Wow.
And we would write them and go see them. And she was very clear that no man would tell his children what to do. So she never remarried. That he was the love of her life. And she would know, even if she dated, nobody came near us like that. No. She would raise us to know that we were his children and to honor his memory and his way of being in the world.
Wow.
So.
Well, one of the final questions that I have for you all.
May I say just one thing?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Sister said that that he re-upped.
Yeah.
And so this speaks of his character and
Yes.
how we live. He re-upped because his baby sister, he and his other brother quit school and joined the military to put their sisters through college because both their parents had died. And he re-upped so that our aunt, his baby sister, could go to graduate school. So that's why he was in Vietnam.
Oh, wow, of course that.
And so that's extended family trauma because then she felt some kind of way over the years for that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. For the final words, ladies, talk to children who have lost loved ones in battle. Obviously, we look at the wives many time or sisters and brothers, but you all lost a parent. Encourage someone who may have lost their parent in battle.
Well, I think the only thing I could really say is that if they have the memories of them, to make sure they hold on to those memories and to live a life so that you can be a legacy. We knew that our father wanted us to go to school. We all are college educated. You know, there's a lot of degrees on that other side there. I don't have as many as my, you know, but we all have degrees. And we tried to make sure that everyone knew that we were his daughters and that we wanted to make sure that we lived a life that represented him and what he, you know, stood for. And so I think that's it. But one thing I think is they need to have some type of counseling. You know, our mother didn't think about that, but I think all of us needed to have some type of counseling because it's trauma.
Absolutely.
And so when we didn't get to see him because my mother wouldn't allow us to see him, so we didn't see our daddy in the casket. And so that was kind of difficult too. She didn't either, even though he was, you know, his body was there, but she sent his best friend to do it. So I think if, you know, it depends on how the family gets to find out whether there's a, you know, the body is there, if it's not. But I think they need some type of counseling, especially if they're small children, so that they can deal with it, because it is just something that kids get over.
Wow.
You know, we each had to deal with it separately, and it affected our lives differently.
Wow.
And it hasn't always been a positive experience, you know, how we lived our lives the rest of the, you know, up until this point.
Dee Dee, what do you have to say? Miss Dee Dee, what do you say?
Family support is good. As she said, each time we traveled with Daddy and came back, we had my great aunt that lived in the family home. So having them around really helped out with our growth. The things that they encouraged us, they let us know that they loved us, but also reminded us that, you know, what your dad did, you know, he did out of love for you all, for this country, you know. So family support to me is a real key in that too. Yeah.
And finally, Ms. Sheila?
I pray that they will get to the place where they can forgive the one who didn't come back. Because my dad promised to take me to first grade. And so the way the trauma impacted me ongoing is that I became the good little soldier. I was very tough, that I was accustomed to living. I always tell people that I learned to stand on one leg. And so counseling and to be patient, but somewhere there's got to be forgiveness, because it's just hard, because they miss everything. My uncle we had stand-in uncles, and it's just it's an ongoing loss and trauma. So
wow, the Elliott sisters, thank you all so much for being here and sharing your dad's story with us and sharing your story as well. We really do appreciate it. And of course, thank you all for still watching us here, our Watch Fox special, remembering our fallen heroes. And of course, we had some other events that took place today. You're taking a look here at the Fort Jackson National Cemetery. Now, this was this morning in Columbia, a ceremony honoring the ones laid to rest to the grounds. So, you know, there were speakers there and stories of sacrifice of service members that they paid before being buried. A 21 gun salute ringing out on the grounds as people were silent to pay their respects. Now, one of the speakers saying that the day serves as a reminder for more than just service.
Memorial Day is not only about uniforms and battles. It's about people. It's about sacrifices made real in the lives of families forever changed. Memorial Day calls on us not just to mourn, but to act, to live lives worthy of their sacrifice, to teach our children in the actual cost of liberty.
around so they can have some time with their loved ones. Once again, folks, if you all are joining us now, you are joining us for a special Watch Fox broadcast this evening, where we are live now on our digital platforms, our website, YouTube, and where we are remembering our fallen heroes. We are remembering their lives. We've spoken with Gold Star mothers a few moments before, and coming up pretty soon, we're actually going to have a daughter of one of our fallen heroes, and we're going to hear from her for the first time, speaking about her father who passed away in combat. Joining us now, though, is no stranger to the Watch Fox family, Commander Tommy Oles with the South Carolina Combat Veterans Group, and a Vietnam veteran himself, Commander Oles. Always good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for being here, Commander Oles. So, Commander, we're going to get straight to it, Commander. You know, you deal with those who have lost folks in combat, the combat group. So how are you all able to help these veterans cope with losing a battle buddy?
Well, it's a difficult chore, but we do it through a spiritual holistic therapy. What we do is we know that God is our creator and He's everything, and we know there's no medicine that can heal us from the pain that we suffer through our thoughts and through our hearts and through our minds, the things we went through. So we do a lot of counseling and spend a lot of time together. We don't do war stories and we don't talk about things like that, but we do things that are best at time in the community, staying active, staying alive, doing things that would let those that have fallen be proud of us, to see how we continue to go on after they and do it in their memory. The South Carolina Combat Veterans Group was started in the memory of those that gave their lives in Vietnam. And so one of the texts that we have now in the community is to go out in the community and believe that no man is left behind. Find these veterans out there that are lost in the system, get them into the system so they can get the help they need, the mental, emotional problems they deal with, the physical help. And as far as the family is concerned, we do group therapy. We bring everybody together. It's a holistic thing. We don't just deal with the veterans. You can't heal the veteran, you can't help the veteran unless you help his family. So we invite the wives, the children, the grandchildren, the uncles, and the cousins, everybody to come in and be a part of it, because the more the family know about the veteran and how they have spent their time in the service and what they have experienced, it helps them to understand them better. And then it gives support to the veteran. It helps his life materialize better. So,
hey, so Commander, what about yourself? Is there a fallen comrade that you like to talk about? Someone a fallen hero that you want to talk about their legacy?
I can tell you about being in combat. I was combat in Vietnam, infantryman, and lost a lot of casualties. Lost. The one I would bring to mind is my replacement. Just before I was supposed to come home, about 2 weeks before I was to leave from Vietnam, they brought somebody to replace me. And the mission came up and he had to go out in my place. I was preparing to come home. And I watched him and my squad get on the track and go out into the jungle, maybe about 10,000 meters from where, maybe about 400 or 500 meters really from where we were at. And I watched the track blow up in the air, and I watched the guys jump off and started running, the VCs started shooting them down. But the guy who took my place, he was inside the track. He was on the 50 caliber. His job was to man that 50 caliber. And so you got steel around you, and you got aluminum around you. And what happened, they ran over a mine. When they ran over the mine, the track went up in the air, hit the ground. The shrapnel from the aluminum that the track was made up cut his body up. But the weapon broke his neck. The 50 cal blew up and broke his neck. The others were, the VCs took him down, snipers shot him down. And I saw all of this. And so I don't have one. This was my squad. These are the guys I had spent a whole year with.
Those are comrades, that's your buddies right there.
And they stayed with me all the time. I came back from Vietnam in January 69, and I didn't start getting any help to 2007. I didn't realize what had happened. That's a long time, Commander. Yeah, I went into the VA system, but I didn't know about the mental health programs. They didn't have programs for us like they have now. There was no issues about post-traumatic stress syndrome and combat stress and all that thing. So I got in a combat group, a combat therapy group in the hospital for veterans that had been in combat, which is a lot different. Combat PTSD, there's a lot of forms of PTSD, but combat PTSD is when you see something, or you can be killed or you can kill somebody. I had to take life and my comrades had to do. We had to see things. We had to see children, old people die. Seen a lot of death and things that you have to come back from combat and live with.
That could be difficult. So
it is difficult.
Those somebody who might be watching right now, they want to get in contact with the South Carolina Combat Veterans Group. How they get in contact with you?
Well, they had to call me, really.
Okay.
They had to call me. I don't mind because that's my purpose, that's my mission, and I do it. Like today is Memorial Day, and they call it Happy Memorial Day. I get a lot of texts, Happy Memorial Day. What is happy about today? Now, it might be that the families come together and enjoy, but they need to know there was a price for the enjoyment that they have today. And that price is based on the fact that we have Memorial Day for soldiers that were killed in battle or soldiers that were died in their services. And that's the most important thing. But it's not a happy time for the wives of these soldiers, the children of these soldiers, the parents of these soldiers. It's not a happy time for them. So I have a problem with that, but I also understand that our country and our people need to recognize the importance of those that what it means to those that have lost loved ones serving this country, whether police officer, fireman, whatever. But those that are serving our armed forces, only 1% of the population is serving the armed forces. Wow. Those are people who say, I do, and they be willing to die. They be willing to die for you. Wow. Now, and they go to combat, they go into foreign countries and they serve. Everybody don't return, some return, but those that don't return, they can't be forgotten. Now we have Memorial Day, we have Veterans Day, we have Armed Forces Day. Veterans Day is for everybody, veterans. Memorial Day is for the deceased.
Absolutely, that's what
it's not for the shopping.
And it's not, and that's what we're doing.
We don't put so much commercialization on it. That everybody going to have hot dogs and barbecues and picnics and cookies. Nothing wrong with that, traveling and fun and all that kind of stuff.
But like you say, remembering the fallen.
Remembering the purpose of why is to remember those that gave their lives so that we had that freedom. That's the price that was paid for us to have the freedom to do what we do. So I don't call it Happy Memorial Day.
And there you go right there. Commander Tommy O's with the South Carolina Combat Veterans Group. There it is, remembering that Memorial Day is for our fallen. Commander O's, thank you so much again for always being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. And of course, folks, as we mentioned, we just heard from Commander Tommy Olds there and telling us, making sure we remember that Memorial Day is the day that we remember the fallen. And that's what we're doing here at Watch Fox. We wanted to highlight our fallen military heroes. And so we're taking a look at an event that took place earlier today at Fort Jackson National Cemetery. It was a moment where they honored our fallen heroes. And the guest speaker was the Brigadier General of Fort Jackson himself, Darrell Hood. He spoke and he once again highlighted in telling people the importance about today and what today is. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Memorial Day is not only about uniforms and battles. It's about people. It's about sacrifices made real in the lives of families forever changed. Memorial Day calls on us not just to mourn, but to act, to live lives worthy of their sacrifice, to teach our children in the actual cost of liberty.
Oh, and there we have it again. And of course, you see those flags there honoring at the grave sites, honoring the men and women who have fought for our freedoms. Earlier during this broadcast, we heard from two Gold Star mothers in their quest to make sure the names of their sons aren't silenced. Well, we have a special guest this time around. Joining me now again is Miss Elaine, and joining me now right now is Miss Diane Rawl, the mother of Lieutenant Ryan Rawl and his daughter, Callie Rawl. Both of you all, thank you so much for Miss Raw and Callie. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Yeah. Now, this is the first time that Callie, that you have spoken about your father's passing. What do you remember the most about your father?
I don't have any specific memories, but I've always loved hearing stories from my grandparents and my mom about him. And I have one memory where I remember him coming home and we were all playing outside. And I remember I had gotten in trouble because I wasn't going to share my stuffed animal with my cousin. Okay.
Oh, wow. So, Diane, throughout the years, obviously, you and your husband have been on the front lines, literally, of making sure that Ryan's name is not forgotten. What was that process been like, where you go from, your mom, your grandma, now your advocate, your Gold Star mother?
Right. When he was killed, I became his voice. And I've traveled all over South Carolina. Well, we've traveled all over the United States.
Yeah.
But we speak often about him, about veterans in general, about the fallen, all the fallen. We want all of them remembered.
Absolutely.
But and our grandchildren needed to know what their father was like, and you know what he brought to the table, and what they were really missing. So.
Callie, you have a different view of a lot of things because this is your father.
Yeah.
This is not some person, okay, that's an uncle, or this is a family friend. This is your dad. How do you continue to grow on past those memories?
I just make sure that I'm always asking to hear a lot of stories and making sure I remember everything, and just not speaking about it, like making sure I'm making his memory go on.
And speaking about that, Mom, you've been doing a lot with making sure that people do not forget your son. One of the major things is the workout. I mean, a lot of people, that's a treacherous workout, by the way, for a lot of people.
It is. It is. And we've taken grandkids there since day one, and they do as much as they can do.
Right.
But Leon Lott and Richland County Sheriff's Department put that on every year on July the 4th, 8 o'clock in the morning, early, so it's as cool as it can be because it's always hot.
Right.
But we do that, and they remember him that way, and keep his name alive. I always tell everybody to say their names and tell their stories.
Say their names and tell their stories. Callie, final question before we close out this segment here. Anything you want to tell to other children who have lost a parent in battle like you?
It's always hard, but it's important to make sure that you're remembering everything and making sure that they are remembered. Through everyone else.
Wow, and Callie, thank you for being courageous. I know this is your first interview talking about your father, so very courageous of you. And Miss Ra, really quick, any final points about being a Gold Star mom? If someone wants to get in contact with you or so, how can they do that?
Well, they could contact the National Guard, and they would put them in contact with me. But if they see me on Facebook, I have a Facebook page, and I'll be glad to message you, and you know, we can meet up and talk or whatever.
Absolutely.
I've met with many Gold Star moms when just right after their child was killed, and tried to assure them that they would get through it. It's going to be a long, long process, but
Wow, and to have individuals like yourself, obviously, alongside them. Thank you so much for being courageous, what you and your family is doing as well, your granddaughter. Thank you, Callie, for telling us about your dad. We really do appreciate it. Ladies, thank you once again for joining us for this, okay?
All right, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us once again, this is our special Watch Fox special. We're honoring our fallen heroes. And now you are taking a look at the tombstones where volunteers have placed flags on these tombstones to honor the men and women, our bravest on this Memorial Day, I should say. Many of them coming last week to prepare for today on Memorial Day. And so that's what we're taking a look at over here. Once again, this is at the Fort Jackson National Cemetery, where these volunteers place American flags on every single grave site they're preparing for today. Well, South Carolina is known for being a military-friendly state. We heard about that earlier before. The Palmetto State provides several benefits and resources for veterans and their families, including tax exemptions and education assistance. Joining us now to talk about how South Carolina is continuing to honor our veterans and our fallen, we have Representative Micah Caskey. Representative Caskey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it on this Memorial Day. Also, you are also a veteran as well. Talk to us about your service, sir.
Oh, God. 20 years and 30 pounds ago, I had an opportunity to serve in the United States Marine Corps. Spent 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. But now proudly sit behind a keyboard or go to dinner events. But think fondly of my time in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, definitely. And so speaking about that time in the Marine Corps, and now you're a state representative, you are on the front lines making laws and things of that nature. Talk to us about South Carolina being such a military-friendly state. What goes into all of that?
Well, I don't think there's any question that South Carolina is a military-friendly state. As our governor often brings up when he talks, that General Clark once said that there's more patriotism per inch in South Carolina than anywhere else in the country. And I think that's true. And I think that value you can see reflected and represented in our state's General Assembly. We take a proactive approach to try and support our veterans, their families, and the communities around them.
And so, speaking about that, are there any laws on the books or proposals that maybe someone doesn't know about how you all make sure South Carolina honors fallen heroes?
So there's a number of them, and we could spend a long time talking about them. But at its core, what we want to do is make sure that South Carolina remains a magnet for the military. And that means we have to do things to make sure that we continue to be a place that the federal government invests, that we don't lose any bases, and that we get more investment here in the state. We also want to make sure that the people who've served in our military and their families, they want to be here. And to do that, we approach it across several lines, whether that's economic, healthcare, education, workforce. We do things like make sure that when your spouse is moving here, or you're moving here with your spouse, that person's professional licensure credentials are acknowledged, reciprocated here. Those sorts of things that make life better and possible, as well as to honor those who've passed while they were here in South Carolina.
Speaking of honoring those, is there any person in particular that you remember, someone that you want to honor, a fallen comrade or someone that you know who has passed in service?
Well, I'm hesitant to name any of the folks that I lost in my service because I won't be able to name them all. And so selfishly, I'll say my own grandfather who served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and is someone who I always look to for inspiration.